live the entire year, joining rivals Southwest and Delta. More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm John Scott.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together right now over me.
All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, with Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson. They're there in Reno. I'm here in Los Angeles. It's Friday, April 25th, 12:05 p.m. Welcome to America Matters. I want to give a big shout out, hello, welcome, and thank you to everybody tuning in on 93.7 KPGF and AM 1060 there in Reno. And I want to give a big shout out, hello, welcome, and thank you to everybody out there as well on AUN Television, on Radio for America, the Salem Network, the Answer Network, the Kevin Jackson Network, and to everybody out there who makes it possible for this broadcast to reach those folks on those respective networks. We really much appreciate it. We're glad to be with you guys. We're also very glad that we can share the truth, some great information with everybody out there. You can also watch us on America Matters Media's Facebook page, our LinkedIn page, or on Zacky Radio on YouTube or Rumble. Make sure you do, because you can comment live on the show there. I know we have a Rumble channel as well, so watch on any one of those platforms. Get involved, comment, and also text in at 775-384-4444. Eddie, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Thank you, Leo, and you're looking sharp, brother, I got to tell you. But if you're ready to slice it and dice it, we got some really PowerPoints to talk about. We've been talking about the tariffs, so let's slice into what I consider one of the juiciest stories in global trade. We're talking about pork, not just your weekend barbecue. No, we're talking about 12,000 metric tons of U.S. pork that was just recently canceled by China, and that's no small side of bacon, brother.
Right? Well, that's a major move. And, so here's what happened. China canceled a whopping shipment of U.S. pork, the largest U.S. cancellation since the early scamdemic. And it's all a part of escalating trade tensions that are flaring up again. So the U.S. recent tariffs on Chinese imports of up to 145%, and China clapped back with its own 125% on U.S. goods, including pork. And you put that together, and American pork is now facing a brutal 172% tariff.
Holy mackerel. Now, you're basically, and I don't mean to sound, like it's funny, but it is a little bit. You're basically seasoning this pork with politics right now, and the impact, though, is real, Leo.
Oh, yeah. The cancellation has led to a sharp decline in U.S. exports for pork, which have fallen to their lowest levels since 2024 in October. And, China was the U.S. third largest buyer of pork after Mexico and Japan. So now they're shifting over to Brazil for their pork needs. So lean hog futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange reacted negatively, with June contracts closing at 99.925 cents per pound, down 22.5 cents. And July contracts start settling at $1.05 per pound. So this decrease of 25 cents that's pretty big. That's really significant.
Amen. It's really big, Leo.
So, the USDA in April, their as of 2025, their livestock count there for dairy and poultry outlook, their reports indicate a downward revision in U.S. pork production. That's typical. That's what happens. You see orders like that get canceled. You'll see the shrink in the market. This is typical stuff that will happen. They're saying that it's projected it's at 28.1 billion pounds, and it's down about 1.2% from previous estimates. And The adjustments are due to a combination of factors, including disease outbreaks in some larger operations and a reduction in lighter weight categories in hog inventory.
Wow. Let me just ask you a simple question. You know, where does this really leave us, the taxpayers, Leo?
Well, right now, the U.S. China trade relations are tense and the pork industry is feeling the heat. So this isn't just an agri issue, it's a geopolitical move with consequences for supply chains, prices, and partnerships. And I mean, this is part of a trade war. We felt these trade wars when we were in business, when we had Zacky Farms and we were producing chicken and turkey. So China, unfortunately, is really gambling pretty big here. They have a big food shortage issue, and for them to cancel all that size of an order is almost as if they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. But they're trying to show that they're strong and independent and don't need America, which I would argue they very much do when it comes to food, because they are running out, and it's quite surprising that they would cancel that. But they want to go to war. Well, you better believe they've got one. So
They've got one if they want to go to war. Now, I got to tell you, what in the world are we going to be missing? Like 2 rowboats filled with plastic crap? Because when I think of what China produces, I don't think of pork. I guarantee you that.
well, they do have, they have their own food industry over there. I mean, their quality is definitely subpar without question. And I wouldn't eat any of that stuff. But yeah, they do send a lot of Chinese plastic made garbage over here. So I think this is foolish on China's end. But again, they're a communist government. They don't care about their people. So if some of their people are starving or their price of food goes up, they don't care, because they're a totalitarian society, and they have a police state. And it's really, really bad. So I mean,
Wow.
it's just dumb. So yeah, it's gonna impact the markets here. So producers are gonna then produce. They're gonna put less hogs on the ground to come to market. It takes time for them to raise those pigs, and so you'll have a period of less hog production, which, as demand comes back up, when this little hissy fit gets settled, you'll see an increase in the price of pork. They'll then produce more pork to cover those costs. The price will come down just a little bit from there. So, I mean, it's just this balancing act. It's
Wow.
just a game. It's really dumb. But we're going to take our first break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Shama Lawson. We'll be right back.
Ugh, I'm so over this. I diet, I work out, and the scale won't budge.
I hear you. Nothing's more discouraging than doing all that work and seeing no result.
I just don't get it. I'm eating healthy, hitting the gym. What's your secret?
Honestly, I was in the same boat until I found Active Life Integrated Health.
Wait, what's different about them?
It's a natural weight loss approach. Dr. Tom and his team help with appetite suppression, energy boosts, hormone balancing, and the FM diet. It's not about starving yourself or exhausting workouts. It's about resetting your body to burn fat the right way.
I'm Dr. Waldorf, chiropractic physician at Active Life Integrated Health, where our natural approach helps you lose weight safely and effectively without extreme dieting or chemicals. Call 775-842-0065 today to schedule your complimentary consultation. Also, the first 25 callers who mention promo code Health Matters will receive 10% off of your treatment program. So call 775-842-0065 to boost your energy and start losing weight today.
Talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I remember you in the old days, Park Lane Mall, a kiosk. It's a lot different now, isn't it?
Man, that was a long time ago. 1988, we've been blessed that we've been guided, and finally we have bought an amazing building across the street from the convention center. We found a better way to serve you. We call it home. We managed to create amazing energy. And when we say welcome to the family, boy, we really mean it.
It is a family affair.
Absolutely. And we couldn't have done it without our wonderful customers who believed in us for all of 27 years. So I'm here to really say thanks to all of our wonderful family members who we started as customers, who now we know each other's children's and grandchildren.
All those years ago, a little kiosk in Park Lane Mall. Park Lane Mall's not there anymore, but you are still here.
Yeah, we have solidified our future by buying this beautiful building on Virginia Street. So we're there to serve you.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson. And we were just talking about the trade war that's, it's heating up.
Yep.
And
you got a text that came in too, Leo.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to that.
If you don't mind, it's a young lady named Phyllis, and her last name is Carmichael, and she lives in Sierra Valley. She said, I am now one of a grand total of 49 women who have all pledged to support Leo Zacky. Would you come to our schools and give a talk? And if your schedule permits, can we afford it?
Well, it doesn't cost you a damn thing. And thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate that. That's really an honor to earn your support along with those other ladies of yours. Happy to come and talk. Please make sure you get in contact with my manager, and we will get that on the. We can find a time for me to come down there. We'll get it on the schedule, and it'd be my pleasure.
Wow. I tell you, I love that, But what about food chains? What's your take on them? How dangerous are they compared to, like school cafeterias, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, like for the quality of food that's served?
Yeah, that's. I remember one remark that was made. She said, I'm worried that I've got metal in my carnitas. And I started laughing.
Well, that's a subject here coming up right now. But I mean, for your question, though, Eddie, in California, unfortunately, schools have the option of purchasing A, B, C, or D grade meat, whereas the prisons in California absolutely have to have grade A food because they don't want inmate A fighting with inmate B because their slice of bologna doesn't look the same.
Right.
So this is a really astonishingly true fact that the public schools, that is obviously here in California, do not have to buy top-notch food for their students.
So they can actually have a lower grade.
Yep. And they can just serve that slop to the kids because it's more cost-effective for them.
Wow.
So unfortunately, they're taking a back seat to that. So when it comes to metal, though, as you mentioned, in your carnitas, the U.S., speaking of pork earlier, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has issued a public health alert for specific carnitas products that could possibly have metal contamination. So the pork carnitas sold to Aldi stores originated from a production problem at Cargill Meat Solutions. Cargill is a very big company. We've dealt with them a lot in our day. So the manufacturer of the product, during routine equipment checks, Cargill identified damage to processing equipment, which may have introduced metal fragments into the meat.
Wow.
Well, that's how it gets there. They're all used with metal machines, and over time they can degrade, or a blade or something like that can break or something like that. Maybe it comes into contact with a piece of bone or something gets in the equipment, or a screw comes out or whatever and gets ground up in there. I mean, things like that can happen. So typically you have there are metal detecting units that are placed all around different portions of manufacturing equipment inside food facilities for food processing that are there to detect that kind of stuff. So if it slipped through the cracks, then, unfortunately, things like this happen. So FSIS, the Food Safety Inspection Service, stated on April 19th, 2025, that they had made this discovery, and they wanted to just issue a public health alert. So the affected products are exclusively to a 16-ounce tray of pork carnitas labeled as seasoned and seared pork with juices slow cooked with citrus, bearing the plant number 46049. That you can see that code on the tray pack there. There'll be a USDA seal. So when you look at that USDA seal, there'll be a plant number in there. You're going to want to look for that. If it's 46049, please do not consume it. The use and sell by dates on these products are June 30th, 2025, or July 1st, 2025.
Wow.
And they were produced on April 1st and 2nd of 2025, and they were distributed to Aldi stores nationwide. So please be on the lookout for those if you have purchased any of these, this specific item, because it is specific to this item. So this looks like it would have happened in their cook plant, because if it's specific to this product, at some point, the piece of equipment in their cook facility where they're doing the value added component is where that breakdown came from. So that's why it's only impacting this specific product, because they were probably just doing this run on it at that time. So
don't eat it.
Some small metal fragments may have made their way into the food, and it's already on shelves across the country. So it's not a recall for some reason, but it is a public health alert. FSIS discovered the risk during a routine equipment check at the production facility, and it's what the USDA inspectors were, and where they found the damage to the machinery could have introduced metal shards into the food. So no injuries have been reported yet, but the threat is serious. So, health risks include choking or cuts or damage to the mouth, throat, or intestines, even death possibly, especially in vulnerable groups like infants or elderly and post-surgery patients. So before you think, it smells fine, remember, these fragments may be too small to see. So what should you do? Just, the product was manufactured exclusively for and sold through Aldi. So if you're an Aldi shopper, definitely check your fridge or freezer. If that's a product you bought, I would recommend to do not eat it, do not serve it, do not sell it or donate it. Just return it to Aldi or dispose of it safely, as in just throw it away.
Right.
So if you've already consumed that product and start to feel unwell, don't wait. Call your doctor immediately. This isn't time to screw around. There can be serious side effects. Just don't want to let that kind of stuff go. So please be careful. These things happen. It's a part of food industry. Machines do break down over time. Parts get worn. They break down. It happens. I'm surprised that FSIS and the USDA aren't specifically doing a recall on this product. But then again, I'm also not surprised because Cargill is just such a massive, massive producer that for them to have like a blemish on a recall would just kind of, not be a good look for them as a business. And also, so they have ways of massaging these things out. And I've seen this practice happen in the food industry before, where they give favoritism to major producers because they don't want they kind of let things slide on, where they should probably do a recall or have a plant shut down, and they'll let them produce over the limit of of positive tests for like E. coli or whatever. I've seen this kind of stuff happen before because the company is so big, and they just kind of like throw their weight around with the USDA and they say, well, you do that, then we won't be able to have, then these inspectors, they won't be getting our pay for, X amount of time while this is handled, and, the negative impact and all this stuff. I mean, they just, there's a lot of fleecing that goes on. And I'm telling you from someone that's been in the industry.
Right.
And we never did this at Zacky Farms. We never had to. Why? We made sure our stuff was always taken care of, where our sanitation and biosecurity was top of our list of things to make sure that we were on top of. We never had a plant shut down. In 90 years of operating, 0 plant shutdowns, 0 recalls, none of those issues ever. That's because Zacky Farms was number one at putting out product and quality. But
Amen.
Big
Amen.
corps, they throw their weight around. So,
hey, Leo, Lady Allison, who's apparently part of that same group in Sierraville, okay?
Mhm.
She said, you gave me a number to look for, and I would like to right now check my freezer and look for the number that you said was the establishment number that
Yeah.
might have been affected.
Yeah. So remember, this is only going to be a product that you would have purchased at an Aldi supermarket. Okay. You
Right.
couldn't find it anywhere else. So it would have come. So if you shop at Aldi, then there is a possibility. The product is called seasoned and seared pork with juices, slow cooked with citrus. It's a 16-ounce tray of pork carnitas, and the number that you're going to look for is 46049.
Wow.
That'll be on the USDA seal there.
46049. And by the way, you did answer the other question about how you would be happy to come speak at anybody's school about the kids and their health and their eating there.
Well, yeah. Well, like, look, you get out what you put in. So if you feed kids low quality crap, you're going to get a low quality, health
Kid.
food. That's unfortunately what it is.
Yep.
So.
Do not, and of course, obviously, don't eat it, don't serve it, don't sell it, don't donate it, or think you're helping somebody when in fact you might be hurting them by getting involved.
Well, what do you mean, the product? That product?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look,
yeah,
I find it strange that they're not doing just a recall on the item. I mean, I don't understand why. Well, I do, because we mentioned this yesterday, how the EU has their standards that say if we're not 100% sure, don't do it. Whereas the US is like, well, if we don't know it's bad yet, go for it.
Right. Not knowing all the slang terms and everything, would you mind if I jumped to brominated vegetable oil right now, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, we're only gonna have about a minute to talk before we go to break, and we'll come back to it. So go ahead, Eddie. Start us off on it.
All right, let's get started on that. In July of 2024, the FDA revoked the authorization for BVO, or brominated vegetable oil, and companies now have until August the 25th to reformulate their drinks. What is that, Leo?
Well, you got to go back to the basics. The periodic table, that is. Bromine sits above iodine, and that's the key thing to look for here. It's they're talking about an element, bromine, and they're both in the same family. So our bodies need iodine to help the thyroid, that little gland in your neck, make special hormones, and these hormones help us grow and think and have energy. And so bromine, on the other hand, can interfere with the process because of its chemical similarity to iodine, and it can compete for absorption in the thyroid. So when bromine displaces iodine, it can reduce the thyroid's ability to produce these important hormones and potentially affecting energy levels, cognitive development, and metabolic health.
Wow.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get back from break, but this is definitely something interesting. I love how they love the
poison
here in America.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm. I freaking hate it, and you should too. So
yeah,
we're going to take our bottom of the hour break here on America Matters. We'll be right back.
In times of market volatility, it can be a good reminder to revisit your financial strategies to make sure they align with your goals. Call 775-674-2222 or visit nvretirementplanners.com. Advisory services are offered through Nevada Retirement Planners, an investment advisor in the state of Nevada. Any insurance products and services are offered through Nevada Senior Advisors. Nevada Retirement Planners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency. Nevada Retirement Planners does not provide legal or tax advice.
Can you define the 4 different parts of Medicare? Do you have Medicare prescription drug gap coverage? At Nevada Senior Advisors, we will walk through the different parts of Medicare, including Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, Part D prescription drug plans, to help you determine which option is right for you. Visit nvsenioradvisors.com, call 775-674-2223 to set up an appointment. Nevada Senior Advisors is not affiliated with or endorsed by the federal Medicare program or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.
Hi, I'm Nathan Osmond of OsmondHomeLoans.com. I'm part of the elite team at Security Home Mortgage and want to become your preferred lender. There's never been a better time to lock in the rate. Unlike many of our competitors, we will not outsource your loan. Our setup, processing, underwriting, and closing staff are all in-house and will help you every step of the way. If you're looking to buy a home in Utah, or if you live here and wish to take advantage of historically low rates, then I am your mortgage man. Be sure to visit OsmondHomeLoans.com today to receive a free quote. That's OsmondHomeLoans.com.
NMLS number 2043092. Barbecue the Butcher's Kitchen would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Charbacue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Charbacue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Charbacue Reno.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Shannon Lawson there. And, we were just starting to talk about BVO, also known as brominated vegetable oil. And why do they keep doing this? I mean, look, the FDA just revoked the authorization on it. And, I mean, it's so crazy how they're allowing this crap to be in here. So we were talking about how it can impact your thyroid because it's so closely related, bromine to iodine, and it can, it's causing issues. So like there's a neurotoxicity issue that can come from this. And there's a documented case from 1997 where they reported severe neurological symptoms in someone who drank 2 to 4 liters of soda with BVO per day. And it's not just the amount, it's the long-term exposure of how bromine accumulates in the body. BVO is quite literally vegetable oil that's been chemically bonded with bromine. And why? Why would they do that? Well, in citrus flavored drinks like Mountain Dew or Sundrop, you've got oils from flavoring that would naturally float to the top, and BVO was added as an emulsifier to keep everything looking smooth and evenly mixed, making your soda prettier and your taste buds happier. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that wonderful?
Not if you're going to die, it's not.
Right? Yeah, what a wonderful concept. This is the real disgusting truth here in the food industry, is that they come up with this crap because it has to appeal visually to folks. So they make these crazy chemicals.
Leo, I know you don't like compliments, but Allison writes in and said, we have to have, with capital letters, we have to have someone with Leo Zacky's background if we're going to save our country. And I'm part of the Sierraville group of ladies. I like that.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you recognize it. Now, if you can help get the rest of the state to figure that out too, we'll be in a good spot. I appreciate that very much, Allison. Look, if you don't understand the food industry in this state, then you're not going to understand what needs to be done. And I don't care what kind of political pundit or sheriff you are, it doesn't matter to me because you don't know this industry. And this is the biggest one. It's the most important one. And I'm from this state. I know this state, and I know what the people need. So, and it's healthy food, it's opportunity, it's water, it's getting the homeless the help that they actually need because it's a mental health crisis. Don't get me started. So, I'm glad you recognize, Allison. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, she's being very open and honest about it because, every child has a mother. They either have a good mother or a bad mother, and a good mother wants Leo Zacky to come to their school and take a look at what the kids are eating to see if they're eating something they shouldn't be eating.
Yeah, well, definitely want to make sure that they're having grade A food. So that's a decision that the superintendent makes. So
right.
Anyway, so let's go back to BVO stuff real quick. So BVO was first synthesized in the 1920s, and it was widely used by the 60s and 70s. And the FDA limited its use to 15 parts per million, but they didn't ban it. They just said they had to limit it. So meanwhile, in countries like the UK and Japan and India, well, guess what they said? No way. They banned that outright. So why is there a delay in the U.S.? Well. I've got a video for you here that might shed a little bit of insight onto that. So,
oh, good. I love your videos.
So we're going to roll that tape right now for y'all.
FDA doesn't have a perfect track record. Some substances approved by this agency have been banned after widespread use led to harmful side effects. Brominated vegetable oil, or BVO, is a particularly controversial additive, banned in more than 100 countries yet allowed in the US. Why? First, let's examine what BVO actually is: bromine and vegetable oil. It's an emulsifier in citrus-flavored soft drinks, which means that it keeps the fruit flavor mixed with the sugary drink. This substance was originally patented as a flame retardant. The FDA believes BVO is safe at 15 parts per million, but according to BVO's opponents, that's not the whole story. Here's where it gets crazy. Brominated vegetable oil wasn't always legal. It was effectively banned for a short time when the FDA removed this product from its generally recognized as safe list in 1970. The Flavor Extract Manufacturers Association fought to get the substance reapproved, this time as a stabilizer rather than a flavoring agent. Citing studies that showed BVO to be safe within certain limits, the industry argued that BVO was harmless if these precautions were followed, and they argued successfully. In 1977, the FDA gave BVO an interim approval status. This interim approval has lasted for decades, and the FDA does not consider the status of BVO to be a public health priority. Not all scientists agree. In a 2011 article from Scientific American, toxicologist Charles Voorhees notes that the compounds like BVO should be re-examined periodically. One of the most compelling concerns is that bromine may accrete in a person's body over time. If that's the case, if BVO is potentially dangerous, then how did it find its way back into the good graces of the FDA? This is the big question, and here's where conspiracy theories run wild. Could the FDA have been bribed? Is the FDA working in concert with pharmaceutical companies to make Americans unhealthy and fat? There's an unfortunate precedent for honest mistakes and outright corruption in large bureaucracies, and the FDA is no different. The FDA has come under fire for approving chemicals like bisphenol A and basing this approval on studies conducted by industry trade groups. This strongly implies a conflict of interest. The FDA has also approved drugs that later had to be pulled from the shelves. So how did brominated vegetable oil get pulled from the shelves only to re-emerge under an apparently permanent interim approval? According to the FDA, the current regulations are working just fine, yet substitutes for BVO do exist, leading some critics to question whether or not there's a cost motive involved. And, again, numerous scientists have made a clear case for further testing of BVO. The FDA claims it hasn't called for more testing as brominated vegetable oil is not a public health risk.
Wow.
Well, as you can see, they're asking the questions is, could they be paid off to allow this stuff to happen? Are they working in concert with pharmaceutical companies? And yes, they are. And here's how they do it. People get jobs at the FDA.
Right.
These big companies come in and they want to put this product on the shelf and they want to get it approved. They offer the people that are making the approvals jobs outside after they're done at the FDA or the USDA. They give them a job, a big executive job where they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars at said company. And then some of those people that are in said company then transition out and go get jobs at the USDA. And it's this revolving door. So they all know each other. They all know what they're doing. And it's one hand washes the other. This is how this kind of stuff occurs. So it goes back to, the whole generally recognized as safe thing. This is what they call it, or GROS. So it's something that was widely used before 1958, and the FDA kind of gave it gave things a pass, assuming if it were dangerous, someone would have noticed by now. But this is the same organization that was having doctors prescribe cigarettes. So,
whoa,
this happened. This is all real.
I know.
You lived through that, didn't you, Eddie?
Yeah, I absolutely lived through it. Well, let's put it this way. I lived through it, but only through the grace of God did I live through it, because I guarantee you I was eating and consuming poison the entire time.
Oh, yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, since then, the FDA has asked for better research and studies on thyroid toxicity and reproductive harm and, bioaccumulation. And, well, frankly, these results they weren't reassuring. So some
Right.
brominated fats were found in people's brains and livers, and even kids in areas with BVO sodas had higher bromine levels than those who didn't, for, well, obvious reasons. So these chemicals wind up actually hanging out in your body for over a year.
Whoa.
So you fast forward to July 2024, and the FDA said enough. Well, I think they could see the writing on the wall with Trump and
Sure.
RFK Jr., so they wanted to get out ahead of this one before they totally looked completely inept, which, well, in some
They
cases
are.
So they revoked the authorization for BVO, and companies now have till August of 2025 to reformulate their drinks. So it's still out there. And they have till 2025 of August of this year to stop putting that poison in our drinks. So most big brands like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo have already removed it, and they
Sure.
removed it years ago, which is good on them for getting out ahead of it. But this stuff still exists. So,
Wow.
isn't that wild?
It's unbelievable, Leo, and you just amaze me every time we do a show together, because you know something about everything that people email in or text in about, and you just brought it up. You said let's talk about cigarettes in the ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is a whole nother subject here. Why don't we cover this when we get back from our last
Okay.
break here on
All
American?
right.
Mad? We're gonna
That
go to this. We'll go and take this break a little early, and we'll come back and cover this one when we get back. So,
that sounds great, Leo. Good job, buddy.
all right, no problem.
Ugh, I'm so over this. I diet, I work out, and the scale won't budge.
I hear you. Nothing's more discouraging than doing all that work and seeing no result.
I just don't get it. I'm eating healthy, hitting the gym. What's your secret?
Honestly, I was in the same boat until I found Active Life Integrated Health.
Wait, what's different about them?
It's a natural weight loss approach. Dr. Tom and his team help with appetite suppression, energy boosts, hormone balancing, and the FM diet. It's not about starving yourself or exhausting workouts. It's about resetting your body to burn fat the right way.
I'm Dr. Waldorf, chiropractic physician at Active Life Integrated Health, where our natural approach helps you lose weight safely and effectively without extreme dieting or chemicals. Call 775-842-0065 today to schedule your complimentary consultation. Also, the first 25 callers who mention promo code Health Matters will receive 10% off of your treatment program. So call 775-842-0065 to boost your energy and start losing weight today.
We're talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, we have talked before about the fact that you started 27 years ago in Park Lane Mall in a little kiosk. You are now in your own building across the street from the convention center. You've had to do something right.
Well, as we like to think that hard work, you like to think that it does pay off, but you get lucky along the way. You worked hard, you pay attention, and you get yourself ready. So hopefully when the right opportunity comes up to buy a beautiful building like we just have, you triple your size, you cut your overhead by half, and now you know that you're more competitive than ever.
Plus, you've had a chance to use all of the things you learned from that little kiosk in Park Lane Mall.
Oh, man, along the way, I'll tell you, as far as writing that lease check every month, boy, there were times that it was really hard to do, so you learn from your landlords, and it was really great feeling to say goodbye to the landlord. This has allowed us to truly become your local jeweler, your personal shopper.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
America Matters, and well, I just kind of.
I got to ask you a quick question.
What's
it
up?
came in on a text, okay? And I feel naked if I don't say his name at least one time. He's in Atlanta, Georgia right now, and of course we're talking about Bubba, okay? He said, if I heard you correct, you said Coca-Cola and PepsiCo had already removed BVO years ago. Is that correct, Leo?
Oh, that's what we are reporting. Yes. So
wow,
that's good. but it's also bad that they were using it, and it's just bad that it's been allowed. Eddie, I kind of want to stay on this whole food subject, so I kind of want to skip over to the segment after the cigarette one. And
Okay.
talk about the USDA salmonella rule.
I love that. I'll do that.
I'd like to keep, just because we're talking about food pretty
Yeah.
much all day here, and
look-
this is something that's important to me.
That's fine. And I'll tell you what, nobody knows more, in my opinion, about food than you do. So let's talk about the USDA's salmonella rule withdrawal, Leo. Okay, yesterday, April 24th, 2025, the United States of America, the Department of Agriculture, made a surprising move, withdrawing its proposed salmonella rule for raw poultry products, Leo. That's right up your alley.
This is my neck of the woods, right? That's why I want to talk about it. So
Right.
this decision ended what had been a 3-year effort to reshape how the U.S. tackles salmonella contamination in chicken and turkey.
Wow. Does that mean, what does that mean for your dinner plate, Leo?
Well, the USDA introduced a proposal known as the Salmonella Framework for Raw Poultry Products, and it was designed to set enforceable contamination thresholds targeting 6 salmonella strains associated with human illness, 3 linked to chicken and 3 linked to turkey.
Wow.
So, had the rule gone into effect, poultry producers would have been required to test products for these strains, and if contamination exceeded the limit, then the products would be deemed not legally allowed to be sold. And the USDA projected that this could prevent up to 125,000 infections from chicken and 43,000 from turkey every year. Salmonella causes 1.35 million infections and 420 deaths annually in the U.S., and mostly through food contamination.
Wow. So what happened? Question mark.
The USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, the FSIS, as I've mentioned before, received over 7,000 public comments on the proposed rule. And the concern ranged from, the USDA's legal authority to enforce such a rule, to the validity of the science behind the contamination thresholds, and the potential economic impact, particularly on small poultry producers. And in response, the USDA decided to withdraw the proposal, stating that it needed more time to evaluate those concerns. So, and I can understand that, because now you're putting a lot more pressure on the manufacturers to do more testing, which is very expensive. And especially for small poultry producers, that can have a very significant impact on getting their product to market and making a profit.
Right.
So the National Chicken Council, which I'm very familiar with, a trade association that works very hard in Washington, D.C. to represent the broiler industry, and I'm very fond of them, very good people there. It was established in 1954 as the National Broiler Council. It was renamed in 1999 to better reflect its focus on chicken products and production. So they represent the producers, and they called the rule legally shaky and criticized its science. Ashley Peterson, the NCC's senior VP of Scientific and Regulatory Affairs, argued that the proposed rule would have led to higher costs, increased food waste, and offered limited public health benefits. And the industry expressed a willingness to work with the USDA on science-based practical policies. And I agree that, if you let the industry help guide the USDA, things will get done far more effectively, because if you start testing and you start really turning up these testings, not that it's not good to look for this stuff. Also, don't forget, by the way, folks, if you're handling raw food, like raw poultry, you need to wash your hands. You cannot use don't use utensils or the same cutting board or plate or whatever, okay, that you had raw product on to then use on cooked product, because that's how salmonella typically can transfer. Or surface to surface, like now you got like chicken juice and stuff like that on your fingers, and you go and reach for the handle on your fridge, right? But you didn't wash your hands or clean your hands off. You just went and touched the fridge, and now you got nasty chicken juice all in there, and then later you or your family member comes and grabs that same spot on the fridge. Well, guess what? Now they got that nasty chicken juice salmonella on there, and they might not realize. And then they go and grab, like a slice of bread or a piece of fruit or whatever, and just put it in their mouth. Well, guess what? Now that's how that transfer happens. Okay, so
Right.
you just cook it properly. You get the temperature to above 165 degrees. You'll have safe food to consume. So that's the healthy number that you need to reach there.
As far as 165 degrees, did I hear you correctly on that?
Correct. So anyway, Sandra Eskin, a former USDA official who helped develop the rule, called the decision a missed opportunity. And Sarah Sorsher from the Center of Science in the Public Interest went even further, comparing the rule's potential to the 1994 ban on certain E. coli strains in ground beef. And that was a very pivotal moment in food safety history. Brian Ronholm from Consumer Reports called the USDA's decision disappointing and troubling, warning it could signal broader decline in food safety oversight. So at the heart of this debate is the classic policy dilemma: public health protection versus industry burden. And that's always been the struggle here. So supporters of the rule argue it was a rare chance to move from a reactive to preventative food safety regulation. And opponents would argue it would have hurt producers without necessarily delivering real results. So the USDA says it's postponed and is reassessing making a reassessment on November 3rd. It hasn't ruled out returning with a revised framework, and stakeholders from consumer advocacies and poultry lobbyists are expected to remain deeply involved in shaping whatever comes next, and I hope they do. Like I mentioned before, food safety practices. Just be responsible. It's really, really not that difficult.
I got a question for you with Zacky Farms. It's almost like you guys almost had to have a special office where you inspected just about on an every other week or every month basis.
We have multiple labs where we would take samples and run tests all the time. And look, that it's good that we do that, but the more requirements, and by the way, like I mentioned before, we never had any issues. We never had any recalls.
I know. I'm so proud of you.
But that's because we took really high standards in sanitation and biosecurity, and we wanted to make sure that we were putting out a very quality product. So just by us making that emphasis and not cutting corners on that back end really saved us a lot of heartache and trouble on the front end.
Right.
A lot of these megacorps and these bigger corporations are very price driven, and they don't really care. So for them, cutting corners like that helps them save money on the back end, even though it puts them at risk on the front end, because it allows them to make a bigger margin. And then they also get comfortable with the fact that there's such a large scale operation that they can kind of throw their weight around and kind of bully the USDA and the FDA to allowing them to produce over the limit of acceptable, whatever it is, positive, for whatever contamination that they may test positive for. So there's a lot of things that are involved in this, but it does come down to money, because it costs money to do those tests. It's not just like, whatever simple thing. Like you have to have somebody gather that. So that takes time, and therefore that takes money. You have to have the materials available to perform the test, the equipment to actually handle the test, the time it takes, the data readouts, and the reporting, and then you have to label all the product. You have to keep it in storage until you can get it cleared. I mean, it's time, it's money, it's people, and it adds up.
Yep, and it goes a lot further than just chickens and turkeys and salmonella. I mean,
it's important, but look, food safety is very important. But that's why we have, like, when it goes back to the thing with the carnitas recall, that should be a recall. We literally have metal detectors and X-ray machines at various stages of the production, because
Wow.
but that happens in any major industry of food production. So the equipment's there. It's just, is it being maintained properly? Is it being monitored properly? And then it comes down to the end user. I mean, again, if you're like, there are obviously, different quality restaurants and people that work in there, and they, maybe the managers or the kitchen manager, the chef, they choose to take shortcuts. They're wiping, they're handling raw product, and then they're wiping their hand on some apron napkin or whatever, and then they go and touch something else, and then they go and wipe their hand on that same napkin or that they touch with the raw poultry, and then they go and touch another, finished food product
Right.
that's ready to go out and be served. I mean, or grab a fork or whatever. That's how these things can spread. So a lot of it has to wind up on the responsibility of the end user. And don't get me wrong, like, good sanitation practices, like I mentioned before, inside the production facilities definitely goes a long way. I come from the camp of water chilling. I prefer water chilled product over air chilled, but there's a reason that air chilled is favored over water chilled, and it has nothing to do with sanitation. It has everything to do with cost. Because
Profits.
It's all about profits. And supermarkets prefer the air chilled product for the simple reason that there is no extra quote unquote added water weight. And because if a little bit of water from the water chill process gets absorbed by the meat or is held in the carcass or whatever, it just adds weight. And when you're purchasing things by the pound and you're purchasing, in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds, and it's a penny a pound, these prices add up. So that's where that comes from. Now, water chill is certainly a cleaner and better way to make sure that you don't have any diseases or contaminants, and that's why we used it exclusively.
Right.
But like I mentioned before, air chilled, the product actually, it can dry out. Take some of the moisture out of the meat as well. So then when they're going to actually make the sale, there's less weight, and therefore the supermarket gets more product for less money. So it's all about money. That's it. And that's the whole issue here. So,
yeah. And I tell you, Leo, one of the things that you'll love.
Eddie, unfortunately, we're out of time, brother.
Okay.
So
well,
I'm sorry, but we'll see everybody. We'll see everybody next week on Monday. Have a great weekend, folks. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. It's been America Matters.
Thank you very much for a great show, Leo.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for